Hey there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Sylver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. In the first hour of the broadcast, I'm going to give you content, information for better sex, more money, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice, more strategies and gambits for having it all. The second hour is what I'm most excited about. It's when I get a chance to chat with you. Yes, you. Where you can call in, talk to me, ask me questions. And if you say the secret word of the day, you could win $5,000 cash. At the very least, if you're the most interesting call of the day, you could also win 10 ounces of freshly minted Marshall Sylver 999 Fine Silver. All of that and more. Brand new Mercedes-Benz sedan or SUV up for grabs. My personal Rolls-Royce Phantom up for grabs. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information about its release coming up. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. I'm Marshall Sylver, your personal millionaire maker.
Let me bring in our hypnotist, Marshall Sylver.
It's Marshall Sylver, ladies and gentlemen, the world's fastest hypnotist.
Hey there, welcome home to this edition of Marshall Sylver Live. It is Friday, 4/24/24, and that means we've got $10,500 up for grabs. You say the secret word in the second portion of the show. If we take some calls and you say the secret word, you win $10,500. And as you know, if you are particularly fascinating, interesting, and everybody else votes you as such, then you will also receive 10 ounces of pure Marshall Sylver silver, minted right here at the Silver Mint. All you got to do is be fascinating, and we'll take care of you. Today's show is good for so many reasons. It's good for you. It's good for me. He's good for the world. The world's a better place because this man exists. Today, we're going to jump into the world of mental toughness and leadership with William Branum. He's a Navy SEAL. He's a veteran with 26 years of exemplary service. Thank you so much for that. On this episode of Marshall Sylver Live, William's journey through the most demanding environments, from the intense pressure of being a sniper instructor to leading high-stakes operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's equipped him with unparalleled insights into cultivating a mindset geared for success. Join us as William shares the invaluable lessons he's learned about resilience, team leadership, and overcoming adversity, offering listeners a roadmap to harnessing their inner strength and achieving their goals. Whether you're seeking to strengthen your mental resilience, elevate your leadership skills, or simply be inspired by tales of courage and determination, William's story and insights provide a powerful blueprint for success. Today, with a nice big Marshall Sylver welcome, please welcome William Branum to the show. William, welcome home, my friend.
Thanks for having me on here.
So glad you're here.
I'm not even sure what I'm getting myself into here. Whoever wrote that intro, I would like a copy of that. That was awesome.
Well, and modest in due respect. I could have gone on forever. I have a very special place in my heart for people who go into harm's way for other people's behalf. Every single one of people like you are heroes, and thank you for your service. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not only that, I'm especially appreciative of people with perfect haircuts. So welcome to the show.
You can't get better than this, more perfect than this.
No, it's sexy. You know, I remember the first day I shaved my head. I went to a restaurant with my wife, and we're sitting there, and some strange woman came over, started massaging my head without permission, without asking. And I looked up, and I thought it was a friend of mine, and I looked up, and I realized it was some stranger just rubbing on my head. And I went, excuse me. She said, oh, I'm so sorry, but it looks like you just shaved it and it looks so sexy. I couldn't resist. Do you mind? And my wife's laughing. She says, no, go ahead. And I'm looking at my wife and I'm looking at this woman. I'm going, what am I, a piece of meat?
What's going on here? Right.
No
Exactly.
kidding. And then, so my wife gives her permission. She starts rubbing my head. All of a sudden, I felt a second pair of hands rubbing my head. And it was another woman from another table at the restaurant. She said, oh, if she has permission, I want to do it too. I went home
I
that night and
I
I
want to know what
shaved my
this
whole body.
restaurant is. Oh yeah, for sure.
No kidding. So enough about me. How about more about me? No. Tell me about you. Tell me about, obviously you've had a massive career in protecting us, but you've also had massive career doing some other things. So catch us up. Let the audience know who you are.
Okay, so my name is William Branum. I spent 26 years in the SEAL teams. That's actually a little bit of a white lie. I actually spent 26 years in the Navy. 23 of those years I was in the SEAL teams because I made some tactical errors along the way. I grew up in a little town called Collinsville, Mississippi, outside of Meridian. I was, even in Mississippi, they called me poor white trash. They called me a country bumpkin. I was not that smart. I was not that popular. But I, had this sort of mediocre mindset as a kid because I was so poor and always thought that, I was never a victim, but I certainly wanted greatness in my life, which wasn't happening where I was. But I was heavily involved in the Boy Scouts. I became an Eagle Scout. I went to the National Jamboree where I met a kid that really changed my life. I wish I could remember his name. And he said, he had his whole future lined up. This was the summer between my 11th and 12th grade of high school. He said, when I graduate high school, I'm going to go to the Naval Academy. I'm going to fly F-14 Tomcats like the movie Top Gun, and I'm going to be a Navy SEAL. I'm like, that sounds awesome. What's a Navy SEAL? And this was obviously long, long ago. And he explained, this is the hardest, toughest military training in the world. They do things that, they jump out of airplanes, blow things up, shoot guns, scuba dive underwater, all this other stuff. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So I come back home from that jamboree that the Boy Scout group that I was a part of paid for because I was so poor I couldn't afford it, but they wanted me to go. And the Navy recruiter called my house, and he said, hey man, have you ever thought about joining the Navy? Now, every other man in my family has been in the Navy, and I always swore that I would never be in the Navy. Number one, they ride on those big gray floaty things out there in the water. Don't want to do that. They had the ugliest uniforms. The Marine Corps has amazing uniforms. The Army,
I agree.
uniforms,
No kidding.
not so much. And I was like, well, I want to be a Navy SEAL, so let's have that conversation. So I went down to the recruiting office and pretty much signed up. I joined the Navy before I even graduated high school. And then about 3 weeks after I graduated high school, I went off to boot camp. I took the Navy SEAL screening test, the physical fitness test. I failed it. And then I didn't take it again until much later, which cost me about 3 years of time. And where I had to go ride on one of those big gray floaty things out there in the ocean. And then it turns out that a school that I went to made me so critical to the Navy that the Navy wasn't going to let me become a Navy SEAL. And so there's a lot of kind of politics that go along with that. But then,
Of course.
one day we got word that the chief of naval operations, who's the most senior guy in the Navy, was coming to our ship in Yokosuka, Japan. He didn't go to any other ship. He only came to my ship, and he had CNO's call, and he said, okay, does anyone here, here's my vision of the Navy, the future, whatever. And he said, does anyone here have any questions? And I raised my hand. I was like, yes, sir, I have a question. I was the second person he asked. I said, I joined the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. I think I deserve a chance to go. My detailer says I'm too critical because of the school I went to. What do you think? He turns to my commanding officer and he says, is he a good guy? Well, I happen to be the sailor of the quarter that quarter, which is like employee of the month because I did a good job. And he's like, yeah.
So you can't argue with him.
Right. And so the CNO turns back to me and he says, okay, check, you'll be in the first class after your PRD, which is planned rotational date. 6 weeks later, I'm off to California to start my SEAL career.
Awesome, man.
And so I did that for the rest of my 26 years. And then when I retired is where things really got ugly for me. I like to say that, when I retired, I felt like that Avengers movie where Thanos like snapped his fingers and half the world's population vanished all at once. I felt like I lost my purpose, I lost my mission, and I lost my team. And I had a pretty badass mission, purpose, and team when I was in the SEAL teams. It's what I've done my entire adult life. And so transitioning from the military to this weird civilian world was the hardest military mission I've ever been on. And now, I'll tell you that I'm still on that mission today.
So you're still on that mission, but you're also on some other missions. You got some other stuff going on.
I
What
am.
else? So tell me more about the current missions.
So current mission. So one, I have a CBD company. It's called Naked Warrior Recovery. And our mission at Naked Warrior Recovery is 22-0. So on my shirt, it says get naked, and there's a 22 right here. That 22 represents the 22 veterans who take their lives every single day. And so our mission, see if I can say this without crying, is to eliminate veteran suicide, because my dad is one of those 22. My dad took his own life, like a few months after I graduated from SEAL training. So it's a very personal mission for me. Interestingly enough, that CBD company is being sued by another company for trademark infringement because I'm using the word naked in Naked Warrior Recovery. And so, I'm just this small service disabled veteran owned small business who is trying to eliminate veteran suicide. And then I have this other company that's a large supplements company, out here trying to, prey on me and just to stop using the word naked. And we can go into a little more of that. So that's one thing
that sounds like a lot of really good press.
Exactly.
Let's go kick the guy that served his country and is only doing his best to help other people that served our country. Let's go kick that guy.
Exactly. And so that's, of course, obviously one of the reasons I brought it up here. But the other thing that I'm doing is I'm, as I was learning how to become a business owner, I had to, I hired some coaches to help me figure out like how to run a business, because, I knew how to run a SEAL team, not sell products or things like that. And through some of the coaching that I got, I started doing, my coaches were like, why aren't you coaching people? I'm like, what do I know? I know how to be a Navy SEAL. I know how to lead men in combat. I know how to do these other things. And they're like, exactly, leadership, teamwork, all these other things. Why aren't you getting on stages and delivering your message? And so now I do, again, these are all the things that I swore I would never do. I swore I'd never join the Navy. I did that. I swore I'd never be in sales. Well, I have a company where I sell stuff. I said I would swore I'd never be one of those life coaches. Well, business coaching, consulting, there's a lot of life coaching in that, because you have to, if you're going to hire me to help your business or your company, well, we have to make sure that you're squared away before you can really impact your business. And then I'm never going to be one of those guys that stand on stage and go rah, rah, rah. Well, I do that as well. And that's really what Get Naked is all about. I call it 5 secrets to help you think like a Navy SEAL. And this is my main message when I get on stage. And the secret is naked. And originally naked was about taking that ego off, taking that armor, taking that mask that you're hiding behind off, take that off so you can become your most authentic self. And then later on, I turned naked into an acronym. So the acronym for naked is N stands for never quit. The A is accept failure. The K is to kill mediocrity. The E is expose your fears, and D is do the work. And you have to do it every single day. And so I call those 5 secrets to help you think like a Navy SEAL.
And so on the Get Naked, tell me how that helps SEALs. And I noticed you've got 3 concoctions you're sipping from today. So you got a little buffet going on there.
I do. So again, going back to on the Naked Warrior side, on the CBD side, when I retired, I had all this negative self-talk. I went back from, having that mission and purpose and team to having nothing, and, feeling sorry for myself, going back to that, that poor kid in Mississippi who was feeling sorry for himself. And I was drinking myself to sleep at night to kind of turn down the noise in my head. I never say that I had depression or PTSD or anything like that. But I certainly was struggling. And, I knew I didn't want to stay in that state. And I'd heard about this molecule called CBD. And so I eventually tried it. Actually, a buddy of mine gave me a bottle, who he's kind of an Instagram influencer. And he was like, oh, if you want I was having lunch with him one day. And he said, oh, if you want CBD, I've got some at home. And so we went back to his house. He gave me a bottle. And what I say is I didn't notice anything when I was taking it. But what I noticed when I ran out is that things that stopped bothering me, that had been bothering me for a long time, started bothering me again. And so I was like, well, maybe it was something to do with that CBD. And so I tried another bottle and had similar results. And so kind of, to kind of give you an idea of what that did for me is, let's say water boils at 212 degrees. I was probably living my life at 210 degrees. And so it didn't take much for me to hit that boiling point, that rage or whatever the thing is, or even to feel sorry for myself. And so what happened over time as I went from 210 to 205 to 200 to 195 to 190, maybe 185, I got out of that red zone, out of that next to that boiling point. And so CBD helped me get there. And so CBD was a modality that helped turn down the noise in my head. And then the get naked mindset is about correcting yourself. You know, these 5 SEAL secrets that I talk about, these are the things that made me successful in the SEAL teams, which are also helping me be successful as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a coach, as a public speaker.
Are you full service dispensary or just CBD products?
CBD, we have some products that have small amounts of THC. They fall inside the letter of the law from the Farm Bill of 2018, which actually made CBD legal. So it's a full spectrum product. And I originally stayed away from THC, but then when I incorporated small amounts of THC, I actually had better results for me personally. So I offer that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I gave up drinking alcohol in July of last year. Just said I'm done. I'm done.
It's a game changer. Like I can't believe it's yeah,
it's been a game changer for me too. So, you know, I started taking some gummy supplements that were 20 parts CBD, 1 part THC, and I never feel a buzz or a high. And I know what it feels like because when I was a teenager, I did THC.
Right.
But the gummies have helped the pain in my knees so much that there's no mistaking it. And you know, again, the science on CBD and THC and hemp in general is so profound. Yeah. It's boggling to me how much power the pharmaceutical industry has to have to limit these products and to have limited them for as long as they did. You know, hemp-based buildings and rope and all products, clothing, anything that could be, you know, could be generated from a tree or some other plant. Hemp's the plant. And it really is a miracle plant.
It's been used as medicine for over 2,000 years.
Yep.
And then the interesting part, and this really kind of plays into the culture of today, is that it's became illegal based solely on racism.
Of course.
They use racism to make it illegal.
Right. So they could put black people in jail.
Black people and Mexicans.
No, without a doubt, and that's always been the case. And you know, and even the infiltration of cocaine into the black communities, and then as you know, again, this is not new knowledge. This isn't my opinion. It's clearly happened with every major drug ever, whether it's cocaine or heroin or fentanyl. That's just the process. But the other side of the coin is the pharmaceutical companies. I'm probably going to get shot down for talking about this, and I don't care. The pharmaceutical companies obviously don't want an inexpensive, absolutely life-changing product out on the market, you know, at discounted prices compared to the ridiculous narcotics that they're selling.
Right, because they can't patent it.
No, they can't patent it. It's too accessible. Somebody can grow it in their backyard, and you know, and that's the challenge with it.
And that's the interesting thing about the pharmaceutical industry is I think 30% of the medicines that they come up with come from plants.
Yeah.
So they'll take a molecule from a plant, they'll create a synthetic version of it, and then they'll, you know, sell that.
Right.
Why can't we just use nature?
Right. And why did you make the thing that you just copied illegal since you just copied it?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a whole show, frankly. That's an entire few days, actually. And again, I just want people to get back to that concept that nature is medicine, because that's the fact. You're having ailments, eat better. You're having ailments. What part of, you know, nature can cure this? Because long before the Rockefellers and the deep state decided that they would start building up the pharmaceutical industry, we were healed and we were healthy and we were way stronger than we are today. Let's not talk about that. What do you want to talk about today?
I think you talked about mental toughness.
Yep.
And I think really I'd like for you to sort of drive a little bit and like what do you want to know about mental toughness? And I'll see what I can,
obviously
I can answer that for you.
Without dodging bullets and avoiding bombs, we've had the same life. My whole career has been about figuring out what is it inside of the human condition, inside this thing that causes us to be who we are. And in my opinion, and this is a great place for us to start our conversation, everything's hypnosis. ultimately our world is what we believe it is on any basis. And you can take somebody that has the entire world going for them, every odd in their favor. And if their brain isn't on properly, if they're depressed, if they're anxious, if they're paranoid, it doesn't matter what opportunities are there, they won't see them. They can't capitalize on them.
Right.
And I believe that hypnosis is what's going on right now in a huge way, and what the deep state. I won't even call it the government, because it's not even the government anymore. It's the deep controllers of the government
Right.
that are utilizing mass hypnosis, whether it's social media platforms or whether they're using mass media, whether they're using conformed advertising, conformed entertainment, conformed sports, that they're using all this psychological leverage on people right now to make them think the world is a particular way. Why? It all comes down to the freaking money. It
Yeah.
always comes back to how can they profit, and again, I appreciate you being here, and you don't have to even agree with me. The fact of the matter is we are in the most pivotal time I have ever experienced in my lifetime in psychological warfare. We are at a place where people need to know you gotta check and confirm every piece of information coming in now, because 95% of it is complete BS.
Right.
So
And
mental toughness, you said it even, you've got to be willing to lose.
yeah.
You've got to be willing to lose. One of my favorite TV shows, I like Dick Wolf's programming. I love Law and Order. I love FBI. I love those shows. Dick is such a dick, though. He's so far left that it screams through everything that he does. Except one of the things that I love is, if you're a part of law enforcement, if you're a part of first responders, and you're running to the fire, you're running into the battle, you don't get a chance to second guess yourself. You have to
Right.
say, this is my mission. This is my life. This is what I do. These are the potential consequences. And I don't think normal people get that that's true in 2 degrees in every area of our life. So, the mental toughness for you to decide, I'm not poor white trash. Yeah, I'm a poor white guy living in a predominantly non-white area, because that's how I grew up as well. I grew up in a portion of San Diego that was mostly black and mostly ethnics, Vietnamese and other ethnics other than white. So we were the poor white family in my community as well growing up. I got chased home from school every day by people that wanted to beat me up.
Right.
And every single day. I remember one day running home, and these 3 guys were chasing after me, and I didn't want to run to my house because I didn't want them to know where I lived. So I ran into the closest neighbor that I could run into. He happened to be a Vietnam vet. So I'm pounding on his door, and he opens the door. He says, "What is going on?" I said, 3 guys are chasing me to beat me up. Within 3 seconds, he was in his closet, back out the door with a shotgun on the porch. These guys stopped half a block away, dead in their tracks, and
That's
left me
awesome.
alone for the rest of the school year. But
But
so I think mental toughness is first and foremost a choice. I
yeah,
think we've got to choose
100%.
to decide, I'm going to be mentally tough. I'm not a victim. I'm a victor. But the second thing I believe is there's no right or wrong. There's consequence. And living mentally tough, there's consequences that you don't get being a pussy. There's consequence you don't get being somebody that won't stand up to tyranny. And again, my family audience is going, "Oh my God, I meant stop being a cat." That's what I meant.
Yes.
But there, that mental toughness, it's like any muscle. The mind's a muscle. It's got to be exercised. So,
Yeah. 100%. So you said something that was really important there. You said you grew up, poor, white, in, not awesome circumstances. And me, the same thing. And neither one of us allowed our circumstances to define us. You make the decision to be great. You make the decision to not be a victim. And this, we have this victim mindset that's just proliferated throughout social media. And you said it again, like kind of psychological warfare. I hadn't watched the news in, I don't know, 10, 15 years up until a few years ago. And I wasn't even really watching the news. It was just the presidential debate between Trump and Biden. And I had actually something else happened. When I started my CBD company, when you start a business, you're like, who's your avatar? Who's your person? Who are you? And I was like, patriots, veterans, first responders. It was veterans, first responders, patriots. And someone said, well, you don't want to be a Trumper, do you? I'm like, what the hell is a Trumper? I don't even know what that
Right.
means.
Exactly.
And I had no idea how demonized
Brainwashed.
like the media was making him out to be. And I was like, really? I've seen so much worse. Like, I don't see what you're saying. Like, I haven't seen that at all. And
None
then,
of us have.
like, the more that I looked and the more that I watched, because I would watch, I'm like, this is interesting. Like, what the hell's going on here? And the only thing that I could see was just people hating, like people making stuff up. It was like, if you've ever dealt with a narcissist, a narcissist they'll tell you their game plan because they'll accuse you of what they're actually doing.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I just see that like in the media. I see that in politics. I see that across the board. And I'm like, oh, it's like we're being ruled by narcissists.
Yep.
And it's not cool. But one of the things that
No, it's
I
not
say
cool.
when
And again, I just wanted to interject. The challenges, as you just said, the courage and frankly mental toughness it takes to stand for what you believe in these days has never been tested more. And again, part of the challenge is people all the time ask me, what do you think is going on with the world? And anybody that listens to me for 2 minutes knows I'm a massive supporter of Trump. And the reason I'm a massive supporter of Trump is I know Trump better than most people. I've been backstage with him, just the two of us, on at least 30 different occasions, way before he had anything to do with politics, when he was just a guy. And so he had no reason to pretend he was any way with me.
Right.
I sat backstage with him in the green room because we've shared the stage so many times. And again, do I think that he's a womanizer? No more than me. Do I think that he talks like a guy in a locker room? Just like me.
Yeah.
And just like, frankly, most of the men that I know that are manly. And again, you can call me misogynist. You can call me any name you want to. But at the end of the day, my wife's the best decision I ever made. I have the utmost respect for women. Do I think women are here to serve men? No. Do I think God gave man, woman to be his companion? Absolutely. And so anybody that throws a wrench in any of those gears they're the fascists. They're the racists. They're the misogynists. And you know that. So how does a person create mental toughness?
So one of the things I talk about when I'm on stage, and the N is for never quit. And I say, there's gurus all over the internet that tell you about, every one of them says never quit. I mean, there's a guy that does a lot of running, and he says something like, stay hard, motherfucker. And I'm like, I don't really know what that means. Is that like a sexual thing? I'm poking fun right now.
No, you're not. I mean, because that's what it is.
But one of the things I say is to create small victories. And this was a concept that I learned when I was in SEER school. SEER stands for Survive, Evade, Resist, and Escape. It's where you learn how to be a prisoner of war in the event that you become a prisoner of war. And so you start off, they teach you how to like survive, make fire, live off the land, navigate. I knew most of those things from my time in the SEAL teams. And then at some point they stop feeding you. If you're going to eat, you're going to eat whatever you capture or, gather, and try not to get caught before your time to be put into the prisoner of war camp. And then you go into the prisoner of war camp, you turn yourself in, you live in a jail cell. They're playing psychedelic music. You haven't slept for several days. They make you do all this weird stuff. And then they start interrogating you. And when they interrogate you, they tell you, they teach you to resist that interrogation. And because this is training, they say every time that we hit you with an open hand slap, consider that to be a buttstock to the face. And so if that was real, my jaw would probably still be wired shut because I was not very compliant. I didn't do a good job I did a good job resisting, but they were like, yeah, you would probably be dead if you were actually a prisoner of war. But one of the things that they taught us is in those interrogations, at some point you're supposed to give up some information, because the goal of the interrogator is to really, yes, get information out of you, but really to trick you into thinking differently. They want you to betray your country.
Correct.
At the end of the day, that's the whole that is the whole reason for the interrogation, because they can only get so much. They can only get so much out of you. Right, exactly. 100%. And so when you're being interrogated, your job is to be proud of your actions at the end of the day. And you do that through small victories. So at some point when you have to give up some information, maybe you change the details of the information. So if, like, let's say, your base was to the west 20 kilometers away, you say, yeah, we were from the north, 30 kilometers away. You change some of the details of what you're telling them. And every time you do that, it's a small victory. Or they're walking you back to your prison cell and they say, don't look to the left. Well, you start looking to the left, and maybe you look to the right, and you get back to your prison cell. Every one of those things is a small victory. You get back to your prison cell and they say, don't communicate with other prisoners, and you start knocking on the wall and they start knocking back, and now you're communicating with one another. That's another small victory. So I say small victories they give you the ability to take back control when you feel like your life is out of control. Oftentimes they're the difference between life and death. Again, you're trying to be proud of your actions at the end of the day. And the same thing, you can use that exact same logic, during the pandemic, wear a mask, get the jab, do all this other stuff. And I'm like, screw all of that stuff. I don't comply with anyone. I comply with myself and my own morals and my own core values.
So what we describe that as, you find yourself in hell and nothing is perfect in hell. Everything is wrong. And the only way out of hell is to find one thing perfect.
Right.
And so what you just described is the exact same thing. You need to find a way to get a small victory so that you can say, they ordered me not to look to the left and I look to the left. So
Right.
I'm still maintaining my power. And then you keep grabbing more and more and more of that. So, good example on the mask thing, when it was going on, the first thing I said is, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. On the box, it says this doesn't work. So if the manufacturer's telling me it doesn't work, I got to believe the guy that made it.
Right.
And so we would go into restaurants, of course, they would demand that we had a mask on until we got to the table. And I would go into the restaurant and I would say, I'm ODD. And they would say, what's ODD? And I would say, I'm oxygen deprivation disorder. I don't get enough oxygen. If I wear a mask, I'll die. So I can't wear a mask. And then they would look at me because why? They're $15 an hour hostesses going, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm going, you got to let me in. It's illegal to force me to do something that will kill me.
Right. It's a
so you got to let
condition.
me in.
Yeah.
Yeah. My family, they didn't care. They just, Daddy, they would shake their heads and put their masks on. I said, you do what you want to do. You've got to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because that's the lesson.
Yeah.
And what your daddy is doing is what daddy believes in and wants to put his foot down and say, no, you're not going to force me to fall into this hypnosis. Because the whole scamdemic was all hypnosis.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
what it was.
It was a total psychological warfare across the board.
And again, they're trying to do it again. They keep hinting at, we found a new variant. We might have to lock down. Of course they do. It's an election year.
Right.
And expect Antifa and BLM to jump to the top of the news anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens.
I'm confident something not good is happening. It's coming really soon.
It has to, because it's the only play they have left.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think they actually have that play. I think there's so many people that are like, nope, it's not going to happen.
Well, again,
we will not comply. But there's still people wearing masks in their cars.
And I feel for those people. I do live events, of course. And when we do live events, every once in a while, not so much anymore, people will show up at the live event with a mask. And then I will see them at lunch and they've got it down around their chin and they're talking to their friends. And then it's back up, covering their mouth when they come back in the room. And I'll ask them, why do you do that? Well, they don't have an excuse anymore. No. And their excuse is, I've got a personal health condition myself. Okay, great. That makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is you just took it off for lunch.
Right.
So if you really had that condition, I would assume that you would just eat by yourself.
Or go back to your room. Yeah.
Right. Go back, be by yourself, because that's the concern. But the thing that somebody said yesterday that was on this show, and you would have loved him because the guy that was on the show yesterday had the same haircut and actually the same beard as you and the same muscular build as you. And my buddy Steven Rosenberg said, if you argue with a moron, it makes you a moron.
Yes.
So don't argue with a moron.
Yeah.
And there's a point where you just have to smile and nod. But getting back to that mental toughness thing, I would agree that we've got to find our way out of hell to begin with. We've got to realize that this thing that we are dealing with is not insurmountable. And I think, again, I'm not religious, but I do look to religious doctrine for lessons that are useful. And so one of the lessons that's useful to me is the story is, and I'm not going to get into my own personal beliefs on this. The story is that Christ, while being crucified, said the words, forgive them for they know not what they do. And my belief is that is absolutely true in all things.
Sure.
Is that the people that are wearing masks are on me because I'm not vaccinated are just doing the best they can in their brains, and they don't know how to do it any different. So don't hate them. Don't be
Right.
angry with them. Don't don't even curse the morons for being morons. And this is hard for me to do. I admit it. It's hard for me when I see the ignorance spewed on social media for me not to say something, except I remind myself they're dealing with their own demons.
Sure.
Somebody on the other side of the battle holds certain beliefs, and I truly believe this conversation you and I are having, if and I'd like your take on what you think about this. If an American soldier who's fighting an enemy combatant, actually, if their families had dinner together, they wouldn't fight anymore. If
Agreed.
their families sat down and knew each other and understood, even if they disagreed on things, while I don't agree with you, I do understand why you believe that, then we wouldn't fight anymore and we wouldn't have the ability to kill each other anymore. I believe that if aliens from another dimension, another planet, another place landed on the earth today, if it was revealed, because they've already landed, if it was revealed that those aliens were attacking us, war amongst earthlings would cease immediately because the greater resistance would be this bigger threat.
Right.
What's your thought on that?
No, I think that's 100%. And I think that's why, the deep state, the powers that be, are continually trying to divide us. They're, trying to take our guns away. They're trying to turn us against one another. I mean, this was rampant during the pandemic. Like they were talking about, it was very much Nazi Germany. Like, and every one of those people that were saying like you should be in an internment camp, you need to get vaccinated, you do put your mask on, you need to do all these other things. They're also the same people that said I wouldn't turn in the Jews to the Nazis.
Right.
Actually, you just did that.
You did the exact same thing.
Yeah, and so, but no one's talking about that. Put yourself in that scenario. I mean, some people are talking about it, but those people who are adamant on like the government is just trying to take care of us. The government is not trying to take care of us. The government is a broken system. Like if I were king of the world, I would rip it all apart, go back to the original Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and then start over from there.
It has to be. When the lockdowns were going on, I had open heart surgery, and it was in the midst of the deepest part of the lockdowns, and so they had to do COVID tests repeatedly on me. And my response repeatedly was, why are you doing another COVID test on me? I'm in the hospital.
Right.
You just did one. I didn't have COVID. So I'm in the hospital. Unless there's COVID here in the hospital, I couldn't have it again because I've not come in contact with anybody except for you.
Right.
But what they were doing is, they were taking that stick and pushing it all the way up into my skull to do the test. And I said, if this thing is so bad, why don't I spit on a slide? If it really is what you're saying it is, then you don't need to go into my brain to test.
Right.
But I told my wife, I said, I have a concern. And my concern is the virus is on the test swabs. And I said, so if they put a test swab up my nose that has the virus on it already, two things happen. I test positive and I'm infected. Yeah. And I said, what an ingenious way to sell a whole bunch of drugs. And then I said, what if the drugs themselves also created some other kind of havoc, like HIV,
right.
which again, we're seeing evidence of things like that being very real, and all the cardiac challenges that people that have gotten vaccinated have had. There's no question. You don't need to be even remotely intelligent to go, oh, they were totally healthy until they got a jab and then they died of a heart attack. Gosh, I wonder why that happened.
Yep.
So again, we're in the first hour. I don't normally rant like this in the first hour. I love you and I love who you are as a human being, and I am grateful for other truth tellers inside the world. What do you suppose a normal person who's not a Navy SEAL can start doing today to make themselves tougher, make themselves more able to see hypnosis and negative programming and just be better people?
Well, I say, and again, this goes back to one of the things I say on stage, and I say, we're surrounded by the enemy every day, and that enemy is mediocrity. Society wants us to be mediocre. They do not want us to be awesome. They do not want us to be exceptional in any way because we're easy to control if we're mediocre.
Yep.
And so, and I'll ask the question, I'm like, so tell me how hard is it to not get stuck scrolling your phone for hours at a time and not put that thing down. I can easily get sucked into scrolling my phone, But what I tell people is I say, start to compete. If you want to kill mediocrity, compete. And I don't mean you don't have to go start a sports team or anything like that. Start small. Compete in kindness. Can you be the kindest person you know? Compete in gratitude, or I'm sorry, compete in generosity. Can you be the most, it doesn't have to be financial. It can be your time. Be generous with other people. Compete in gratitude. I found that gratitude is a superpower. About 2 years ago, I started practicing gratitude. So every day when I wake up, I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. 4 of those are super easy. 4 are, it's my health, my financial situation, my family, any good thing that has happened in my life. But the 5th thing is always something that has brought me great pain. Can I be grateful for the hardships of my life? The people who have tried to hurt me, the people who still try to hurt me. Can I be grateful for that? Because those are the things that make me stronger. Those are the things that make me better. Those are the things that make me more resilient. Those are the things that give me a stronger mind, when I can be grateful for that. And when I started practicing that kind of gratitude, I became more mentally tough, because I took their power away from trying to hurt me. I could be a victim, or I could be the winner.
Yep. Most people don't understand gratitude is focus, and what we focus on expands. And so when we find things to be grateful for, again, it's that way out of hell. When you find one thing in life that's perfect, you couldn't possibly be in hell. But the moment you notice one thing that's perfect, guess what? You'll notice something else that's perfect. Right. So when I'm feeling depressed, and when I'm feeling pushed down, when I'm feeling like I don't want to go on, and I've been suicidal in my life, so I know what it feels like to feel that kind of pressure. What I do is I look at my hand. And when I look at my hand, I'm boggled by how amazing God must be, that my hand functions the way that it does. I mean, an engineer couldn't design this thing from the ground up. And then when I realize I'm looking at my hand, I say, oh my gosh, my eyes can see, I have vision. Well, if I have a hand that works and eyes that see, I'm not really in hell. It might suck today, but I'm not actually in hell. And so if I'm not actually in hell, then maybe I just should focus on getting rid of the suck.
Right.
And not getting rid of my life, just getting rid of the suck. And I think that's the challenge for people, is they don't want to count their blessings. They don't want to be grateful, because it's so much easier to be a victim.
Right. And then, I've never understood that whole victim mindset. I just can't do it. I can't bring myself to it. It doesn't mean that people aren't trying to hurt you. That doesn't make you a victim, though. Like I said, I'm being sued for trademark infringement. My original thought was like, I don't have the time, the money, the effort, all this other stuff to deal with this. My second thought was, hell yeah, I get to be sued. How many people get to be sued? I get to be sued. Then I can take that experience and I can go help other people with that experience. Because
I think
new clients may eventually be sued. I'm like, oh, I know how to manage that or navigate that now.
Well, yeah, years ago I got attacked by the government, and they were threatening to throw me in prison for 27 years for something I hadn't done. And in return, they offered me a misdemeanor and a $500 fine. So just a misdemeanor, slap on the wrist, $500 fine. And when they sent over the agreement to give me a misdemeanor rather than 9 felonies, it said, I, Marshall Sylver, am guilty of 9 felonies. Because the government's so nice, I'm going to take this misdemeanor instead. And I said to my attorney, I said, I can't sign this. It's not
Absolutely
true.
Not. No.
It's a lie. I can't sign this. Well, it's going to cost you $1 million to defend yourself. You might not even, be found innocent. You might end up going to jail for 27 years. I said, okay, then that's what I've got to do. I can't agree to something I didn't do, because that's just a bad precedence. I said, when I was a kid, we were so poor, I wore my sister's clothes and I got beat up. And it wasn't until the day I beat up the bully that it stopped. So if this is my battle, this is my battle.
Let's go.
And I tell people, again, what we've got going on right now, you got somebody being attacked at a level unprecedented for a crime that was against nobody. You got, the Trump case in New York where he's fined $450 million.
Right.
There's no victim.
Right.
The people that he supposedly defrauded are saying, we weren't defrauded. He paid us. We want to do business with him again. Right. So if we are in times that is allowed, that can happen to somebody, all the developers in New York are running away from New York going, if you're going to do that to the #1 developer, we don't stand a chance if you get angry at us.
Right.
And I think that that's the thing is that, you've got somebody that's all Trump has to do is withdraw. That's all he's got to do. And every attack on him stops.
Right.
So why doesn't he do it? Because he can't. Because there are times when we realize this life is not about us.
Right.
It's about a bigger purpose. I didn't want to have children because I saw Terminator, the movie, and I saw what's happening with AI. And I said, that's not fiction. That's reality. In fact, it's already happening, and they don't even want us to know how far it's come.
Right.
I said, and then one day my wife said, can you tell me again why you don't want to have kids? And I said, because I'm concerned about bringing my children into a world that's likely to be Terminator. And my wife said, what if our son is John Connor?
Right. Yeah.
What if our son is?
It's interesting. I'm going through some of that myself. And so I have 3 kids, and I'm actually, and I have a vasectomy. I'm looking to reverse that so that I can have more kids, like bring better people into the world. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy.
No.
Oh my gosh. It's hysterical and it's terrifying all at the same time. But it's, it's like all the smart, happy, like whatever, well-to-do, educated people, they're so busy like with their careers and time and whatever, they don't have any babies, but you have all the rednecks and like dumb people. We're going to say dumb people. I'm a redneck, but they're all just like, proliferating, and the world just becomes incredibly dumb and easy to control. But if you look at that movie now, I probably watched it 15 years ago. If you look at that movie now, you'll see a lot of similarities to what's going on today. How easily people are being controlled, how they're being manipulated, how all this other stuff. And you have to be able to, pull yourself out and like, I'm in control of myself. I'm my own boss.
Yeah.
And so I'm a part of a couple of men's personal development programs, and that's some of the things that we teach. It's funny, like while we're on this, it looks like I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in July, and there's a lot of guys that are either instructors or graduates of this program that I am a part of, and they're blowing up my chat right now. Funny enough. But in one of those programs, we're like,
are they watching this show right now?
I don't think they are. They're talking. Maybe they are. I have no idea. But they're talking about the Kilimanjaro crew, and they're talking about climbing the mountain and stuff. But that's one of the things that we teach is like, stop complying. Like, you don't have to comply with everything. And oftentimes we'll tell them like, we're going to lead you down the wrong path, and it's up to you to recognize that and then confront us. Like, we're in this, position of authority, and at some point we want them to actually fight back, not physically, but don't comply with what. Question everything.
Why are we doing this?
Exactly. Don't be a sheep. Don't be a lemming. Don't just blindly follow the blind.
Right.
Think for yourself. Have some critical thinking skills, and use your own judgment. Don't just blindly do what someone tells you to do.
Well, I think that, one of the worst cases, and this is a pet peeve for me, I have a big scar on the back of my head. I've been beat up and knocked unconscious twice in my life. And both times I got knocked unconscious were protecting other people. That I saw injustice going on in front of me, someone that couldn't defend themselves, and I jumped in to do whatever I could, knowing full well I was probably going to get beat up too, but I figured I would slow down the beat down the other person was getting.
Sure.
And so, injustice is one of those things that I have a hard time sitting back and watching, but I see so many circumstances where somebody, like even in a setting like a seminar setting where you have everybody there, and then you all of a sudden attack one of the members and kick them out. And it's clearly unjust. And everybody else just sits there and watches it and doesn't do anything about it. Doesn't say anything about it. Doesn't say, you know what? That was unfair.
Right.
That wasn't right. You didn't pay attention. We're going to kick you out too. Well, then kick me out, because I don't want to be a part of an organization that would do that. And I think that's the biggest challenge that's going on in the world, and especially here in the U.S. right now, is that one party has done a phenomenal job of making people believe they stood for things they don't stand for. Things that are not even a part of, it was never been a part of their foundation or a part of their credo or what they uphold. And I just think that that's what's got to happen is people have to say, hold it, you say you support this demographic of people, yet every action you take is against this demographic of people. How could that be? You know, we've got, in due respect, we've got people arguing about the fact that our current administration has created a phenomenal economy. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, where do you get that?
Right.
Maybe you're not talking to the guy and the gal that are both working 3 jobs just to feed their kids because they have to. Maybe you're not paying attention. We've got whole generations, multiple now, that can't buy their own houses because the cost of living continues to skyrocket, not due to the cost of living, due to the cost of other things that we're paying for, other countries we're paying for, other things that, you know, that we are funding that have nothing to do with the quality of our lives.
Right. And it goes right back to that whole narcissistic thing. Like, they're telling you what they're going to do.
Yep.
When they accuse someone else of, oh, the economy is great, the economy is whatever it is. In what world are you living in? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, and they've got to say the economy is great, because if somebody else gets into office, then they can say, oh, look what they did. Now it's not great. And the response is, you realize they've only been in office one day. It didn't change yet. It's exactly what it was. Well, you can't blame the previous president. Well, you did it when you were in office.
Right. Right.
So, and again, it's the same story again and again and again and again. And so, you know, for me, what's the way out of hell? What's the way in today's climate, in today's, I hesitate to even say political, because it's not even just political. It's the world climate. It's pure communist regimes attempting to stop open and free communication in the world. If you go to China, and I don't know what it is today, when I was in China last, you couldn't go on Google there. Facebook didn't exist there because in China, they locked down every piece of information. I was on stage in front of 10,000 people on one of my earlier visits, and I just mentioned the word Tiananmen. And when I said Tiananmen Square, I saw my promoters in the back of the room go white in the face. After I got off stage, he walked up to me and he said, you can't say Tiananmen Square. I said, why can't I say Tiananmen Square? They said, it doesn't exist. I said, it's on the map. I visited there 2 days ago. They said, not in the context that you mentioned it.
Yeah. Well,
why? I said, because they'll put you in prison forever.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So Canada is experiencing some of that right now.
Of course they are.
I have friends up there. I'm actually going to be in Canada next week, speaking at an event.
Well, Fidel's son is just doing what his father did.
Right. And so, you know, I communicate with, you know, people up there, and they have to use a VPN to Google something. You know, if you Google without using the VPN, you'll come up with one answer. And if you use the VPN, you'll come up with a very different Google search. So it's interesting about that. But I also saw I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but I saw a reel this morning that 2 different people posted. And it was a Chinese immigrant, funny that you said China, who came here, woman, and she was talking to David Hogg, I think, who was very anti-2A. And she said, you know, under Mao, you know, millions and millions of people died and all this other stuff. And she said, because we had no guns, we had no ability to fight back against a tyrannical government. So she said, can you guarantee me that the United States government will never become tyrannical and do what Mao did? And he was like, no, actually I can't, which is the whole purpose of the Second Amendment.
Yes. Which was the declared purpose of the Second Amendment.
Yes. Because we left a tyrannical government. And so the founding fathers are like, well, we don't want that to happen here. So we want that to be freedom of speech is number 1. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this. The ability to carry a gun is number 2.
Yep. I don't know if you saw this. In Michigan, they just convicted a mother and a father of not murder.
It was like manslaughter or something, because their son went into a school and shot a bunch of people.
Yeah, and they just convicted mom and dad for what the kid did. And I said, that is ridiculously dangerous ground to be walking on.
Yeah.
Because how far up the tree do we go? Well, then the mom and dad just need to say, well, yeah, we did this because somebody did that. And then we did this because somebody did that. I just saw San Francisco's attempting to pass an ordinance, a law that a business has to give 6 months notice before it shuts down, or its customers can sue it. And I'm going, okay. So rather than become responsible as the government for getting rid of the overwhelming amount of homelessness going on, of the overwhelming amount of crime happening, stores being raided by people robbing the store that aren't getting in prison. Even when they're caught, they're released with no bail. They're not charged. So rather than actually running your city better, now you're going to go penalize the businesses that can't exist. A business doesn't give you 6 months notice it's going out of business. They can't do that.
Right.
Because the moment they do that, every customer says, oh, I can't buy there anymore. They're going out of business.
Right.
So announcing we're going out of business puts you out of business, which means you can't stay in business 6 months. There's no way to win.
Right. I mean,
but
California
that's what Pelosi and her crew are all attempting to get done, only so that they don't have to acknowledge their ridiculousness of shortcomings and all their insider trading going on.
Oh yeah. And California is one of the worst places to have a business. I had a rental property there and I had a squatter.
Yep.
It costs almost $20,000 in 4 months to get them out because they have more rights than you as the property owner.
Yep.
Oh,
and
never
now,
mind the fact that I'm still paying the mortgage. I have responsible for all this other stuff, and they're living there rent free.
Yep. Now it's time. It's time that we had the conversations. It's time that we continue to speak up. And again, as a hypnotist, I'm really careful on watching what people do, and getting a sense. And my sense these days is the majority of the population is you and me. It's the majority of the population thinks like we do. The challenge is the people that don't think like us, to the extreme that we don't think, are loud, and they're funded, and they're funded by the very people that we've been talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a friend of mine, she just did a TED Talk, and one of the things she said was, it isn't how loud you yell, it's the strength of your voice. So you can be over there making a bit like rah, 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 or you can have a very strong voice and a very powerful voice, and you don't have to be loud about it.
Well, I think the way to approach it, there's terms, and I don't like the terms only because there are people named Karen and Brandon that don't deserve that kind of grief. But there are, people that fall into those places. And if those people were, I don't know, 5 years old, and they were kids, they were children, and they spewed what they spew, we would just look at them and be amused. We'd go, you silly little kid, you just don't understand. And I think that's the best we can do with idiots, is just go, oh my gosh,
poor thing. You're so cute over there. Yeah.
How funny. And so that's what I've taken to do. When people say the stupidest things online and they're attempting to enroll other people in their stupidity, I just say, oh my gosh, thank you. That's the funniest thing I heard today. Thank you so much. And then when they come back and they say, well, I wasn't joking. Oh my, now you're being even more funny. Thank you for pretending you weren't joking, because there's no defense to that. Well, I'm just going to run away then. Well, man, if you have to.
Right. Yeah. I have a hard time with dumb people. I'm like, how are you? What?
How did you eat today? How did you put your pants on?
Right. It's mind boggling, but again, it's just like this sort of sheep behavior and entitlement. That's something I hate, is entitlement. I have fallen into that trap before, though. There have been times in my life where I'm like, oh, I should, whatever, fill in the blank. But then I'm like, what am I doing? I hate that when people do that.
No,
now I have to hate myself. I have to like pull my head out of my ass and.
Yes. And I think it's more than that. Again, it's just about good strategy. Having rights sets people up to wrong you.
Right.
So, when somebody says, I have a right, I say, I'd rather just be happy. I'd rather be happy than right. I don't need to be right. I'd like to be happy.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so often, and it's a good strategy, not just on a global level. It's a good strategy on a marital level. Sometimes my wife and I have a disagreement and I realize we're not going to get to agreement. I just say, okay, honey, I love you.
Do you want to be right, or do you want to be in a relationship?
Yeah, I'd rather be happy. So I'll let you be right until you realize otherwise. And I don't say that out loud, but that's what I'm thinking. And if I'm wrong, then I'd like to be revealed that I'm wrong. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
because I really just, my relationship is way more valuable than a moment of rightness.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I've sort of recently done a little bit of a deep dive, not super deep, but going deeper on masculine and feminine energy. And, as I kind of go down there, like the masculine is supposed to be the strong, like the mountain, like the solid foundation. And the feminine is more like the ocean. It's chaotic. And sometimes, the feminine comes out and they're like, just says some just off the wall, like ridiculous things. And you're like, what the hell is going on there? But if you don't get mad and you can just maintain composure and be, rooted into the earth, you actually achieve more greatness through your masculine power of being a strong container for their chaos at times. And it's not they're trying to be, vindictive against you. Oftentimes they're just trying to, like, the feminine is much more, they communicate emotionally. The masculine communicates logically. And so if you can create that safe space, let them get their emotions out. Okay, you're right, whatever you want to say. And then they're like, okay, maybe they'll come back and say, sorry, I lost my cool. Whatever it was.
And even if they don't, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Yeah. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. And
yes. And I think that's the piece right there. And I would wholeheartedly agree with you. Part of the way to control people is to first and foremost emasculate the ones that would stand up and fight.
Right.
And so and I think that's what the battle has been. If they can make enough men non-masculine,
right,
if they can make enough men question whether they're men or not, I mean, at basic level, but if they can do that, then there's nobody left to defend. And I would agree that, women certainly don't need men, and men don't need women. I prefer women in due respect, and I would prefer that my wife's petite. So if there's going to be some kind of a threat to us, I don't expect her to protect us. No. That's my job. If there is somebody that needs to help me clearly and level-headedly see something because I'm being too productive or I'm being too masculine, I want my wife's energy and reasonableness to pervade me and make me stop and think. Take a breath, Marshall. Just take a breath. But I think that is the biggest challenge. And I think, Kevin Sorbo, the actor, said the other day, he said, that is what the attack is. The attack is on masculinity, and it's on men not being allowed to be men, and that the entire push toward, equality. Yes, all humans are humans, but men and women, we are different.
We are different.
And we're very different. We have different powers. And again, one of the things I very much appreciate about my wife is she's smart enough to harness my productivity. She's smart enough to inspire me to produce the life that she wants. And she's great enough at being a woman that it inspires me to do whatever she wants, because what she wants is the center of my universe. And then what the children need and want is the second thing that my life's purpose is. And so again, call me misogynistic, call me sexist. I don't really give a damn. It works really well for me. My wife says, first thing this morning, I opened my eyes. My wife was staring at me and she said, I just wanted to say, first thing, thank you for being my husband. Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for making me first in your world. Thank you for all that you do. And again, who doesn't want that?
Right. Yeah.
Who doesn't want that? Hey, you're an amazing guest, and I have loved having you on the show. Any last things that you want to say to inspire the audience, or any offers that you want to make to keep people in touch with you? Anything that you want to do to have people check out your company?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you for the opportunity. So one, I wanted to just touch really quickly. There's this this phrase of toxic masculinity. That's part of that psychological warfare. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There are toxic people. Masculinity is not about being toxic. Masculinity is about being strong. It's about being a protector. It's about being a man. And we need more of that. So I'll leave that right there. But if you want to learn more about my CBD company, it's nw-recovery.com. If you want to learn more about the Navy SEAL 5 SEAL secrets, this get naked thing that I talk about, if you go to the website, the number 5 sealsecrets.com, put your information in there, and I will email you a PDF that describes everything. It's the same keynote I give from stage, and it's yeah, it has been a game changer for many people, to include myself.
Well, you are awesome. What city are you in?
I live in Hawaii, but I'm currently in Montana. I was at a mastermind this weekend, and I think I'm going to spend the rest of the weekend here in Montana, and then fly to Canada Monday.
Lovely. Well, whenever you are in San Diego or Las Vegas, I would love to see you. When I see you in person, I'm going to hand you personally 10 ounces of pure silver, just a little
Fantastic.
momentum of our
I
meeting
appreciate that.
and me appreciating you taking the time of being on the show.
Thank you,
So
sir,
you're
very
an
much.
awesome guest. You're a godsend to not only the show, you're a godsend to the planet. Thank you, William.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate what you're
bet.
doing.
God bless. Take care. Yeah, we've got awesome people on the show. Hey, you know what? As you know, this show is not only about bringing awesome guests like William Branum on the show. This show is also all about us taking care of you. So when we have calls, we take callers. When we don't have calls, we don't take any calls. And today is a show that we're about to wrap. You've been awesome. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you on Monday. God bless. Hey there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Sylver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show coming up 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. I'm going to give you content, information, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice for having it all. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. So stay tuned.